Hey, so Stacy, what is your interest in this issue?
I actually worked for hospice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good.
good.
That's who I
That's who
want to
I
hear
want to hear
from.
from
Right when
right
I
when I
get my
get my
things
things
together.
together here.
Sure. Give me a
So,
Give me a
second.
second.
are we talking yet?
Okay, I'm right side up again.
All
Well,
right, let's
you've
talk
got
while
to
we're
be
still
right side
right
up
side up.
sometime.
Let's do it while we're
So,
still
how long
right
have
side
you
up.
been in the hospice business?
Right side up.
I just heard several voices at once there.
Oh, I asked, how long have you been involved in hospice?
Actually just a month. I quit working at a hospital to work for hospice.
Oh, really? What made
Yeah.
you do that?
Uh, my papa dying 12 years ago
Yeah.
made a big impact.
So,
What happened exactly?
Well, he called me one day and said he thought he had a stroke. He couldn't walk. I took him to the hospital. A week later, he come out with, they said 6 weeks left to live, and it took 2 weeks. I spent the entire 2 weeks. I took vacation from work and spent the entire 2 weeks with him and helped hospice take care of him until he passed.
Oh, that's really sad. I'm sorry to hear that.
so sad.
It's sometimes it's sadder to lose an animal than it is a human being. For me, I'm a dog lover.
This is, but this is 12 years ago, Stacy?
When my papa died,
Yeah.
yes.
And so, what have your thought processes been in the intervening years? Something brought you to hospice.
It's always been my interest, especially it ended up being a huge fight with my family about even bringing him home. And I threw a wicked temper tantrum and he came home. And I did everything I could except change his depends because that was my papa and I couldn't do that. But yeah, I don't think enough people are aware of it, and they treated him just like he was their family. So
That's that's really good. I think one of the things my brother passed away in 2007. He had well, he had colon cancer for quite a long time, but he kept it to himself. And then all of a sudden, he had to be hospitalized. And we kind of realized at that time he'd been an invalid for a really long time, and it wasn't really clear. But he made a bunch of choices that were in a panic.
yeah,
And he was stage 3 or stage 4, and had metastasized, and he shouldn't have been subjected to a lot of the surgeries and things because it was really too late for him. And after the first surgery, he suffered a lot, and he told me that I wish I'd known. Um, I wish I'd known. I never would have let them do that. And that stuck with me. He didn't last for very long. They did another surgery, and he died right after that surgery. Um, but he didn't really have a chance. He could have not enjoyed necessarily, but not suffered in those last months. So I think one of the things that we all kind of were looking for somebody to care rather than to do this heroic intervention,
right.
because it seems like at the end they can do a lot of really terrible things that are both expensive and painful.
Yeah.
So Amir, Are you still there,
Amir? Amir, come here, Amir.
Amir. Well, let's ask Brian. So, Brian, how did you get interested in this?
Oh, you know, I unfortunately, I'm currently looking, well, I don't know. Academically, I can get into in a bit, but as far as family-wise, I've had several family members pass away prematurely that were in a hospice situation. Currently, both my parents are actually, I actually have to change their depends, their catheters, everything. And they're both blind and unable to move around very much, and both live in my home. And so I can really understand what it's like in hospice from firsthand. But as far as euthanasia, I don't know if you guys are aware, but I actually, for my final thesis, there's
Brian?
euthanasia. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but Amir, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm listening.
Okay. Brian, is there any way that we can have you have a seat maybe and because your energy is really up there and I'm really like sensitive to this stuff, so I get anxiety just like you're like running around.
Yeah, the other thing is, I think as you move around in the room,
1 second. Yeah,
I'm just outside right now.
okay. It's just once you sit down and just
Yeah,
that way it's better to
I was
hear
waiting
you.
for you to get ready. So I'm just doing my chores. Right
So
now.
sorry. I'm still trying to get people
okay.
together. Here's another one. Okay. All right. This has turned out not the way that I wanted it to, obviously.
well, we're getting started here anyway.
Yeah, so here's another one.
So, how long have you been the caregiver for your parents, Brian?
Oh, that's a good question. Let me see. When they lived in their own place, about 40 minutes away, that was 3 or 4 times a week, and then all weekend. That would have been since my dad's first heart attack, which would have been, oh my gosh, I'm guessing about 09, maybe 08.
Wow.
And then he had another heart attack. My mother went totally blind, and she barely can't walk very much. And then they were refusing to go anywhere but live at home. So I mean, I can't force anybody. But eventually, my dad got another. He already had colon cancer. Then he got stomach and intestine cancer, and he had another heart attack. And he ended up back in the hospital. The hospital's here where I live. And so the hospital that basically had him in and had my mom there saw the condition of them and basically said to me and to them that they're not leaving the hospital unless I agree to take them to my home. They're not to go back out to their home again, and they're way too. My dad had some. I don't even want to go into the details, but he couldn't see, and he has macular degen, and she has glaucoma, and neither one of them realized how bad he actually was. He literally almost had staph growing on his body, and it was just terrible.
Oh, wow.
So we actually have to bath him weekly, and we actually have to. I don't even want to say this. I have to pull the foreskin back and clean inside his penis, and because he gets crusty. Yeah. It's unbelievable the level of what you can do as a caregiver. And I only have my level 3 first aid. I was a firefighter. I don't have a lot of training, so it's been literally hands-on. And now my mom's in dialysis full-time. I barely understand how to even do the hemodialysis. I mean, I'm reading as fast as I can, but it's about $80 an hour for a caregiver, so I'm struggling with that. I can do the catheter stuff. I can lay the lines. I can do the beads. I can do all that stuff, but I'm not a medical person. I'm a criminologist. I don't have the training. But they don't want to go into assisted living, and I can't force them, right? So They actually, my mom even reminds me every now and then that when I was very little, she says, I promised that when they got old that I would look after them. I guess I don't remember that, but she reminds me quite often of it. So, don't put us in care or else, right? And I don't want to do that. Obviously, I wouldn't want someone to do that to me. But if I wanted to, that's different. And I mean, there's some pretty neat assisted living places around here. I mean, they're actually probably better care than I can give, really. But I can't. I don't know how to talk them into it, and I'm not going to try to unless they want to. And if they want to, fine. I mean, it's lucky I work for myself because it's very hard to hold as well. I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Brian, sweetheart, you're cutting out again.
Who is?
You are.
Oh.
You're sort of going all echoey, and then I couldn't even understand what you're saying for a couple of minutes there.
Oh, I'm not moving, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Because you do have a very interesting story about your caretaking. You have a lot of pressure going on you. I know that. 2 parents.
It is
That's
very
not
well.
easy.
It is. No, and I'm just lucky that my 6 kids are finally adults, because that was a lot of stress over the last few years looking after all the kids. I have 4 girls and 2 boys. They're nice. I just moved her into a place, and I'm going to look after my kids as far as physically. Of course, I send them money and stuff, right? And my grandkids and whatever. But I think more work than my kids ever were.
You kind of overwhelm me with everything that you're involved in, Brian. It's kind of remarkable. It makes me tired just hearing about it.
It makes me
do your
tired
kids
doing
help
it.
you with your parents?
I think every now and then they might wash the dishes of their own.
That's
They're all
late.
like, I mean, they don't know. Not really. No. When I was a kid, I looked at my aunt who had MS. I was over there all the time with my cousin, looking after her, helping her on the toilet. And I mean, I know what it's like to help someone, and my kids are definitely not only not helping off if grandma, grandpa aren't nice to them, or they're at that age, right? Between
Hang in there.
the one, between 19 and 20 years old, the ones around ones live further away. They're not. They're at that age where they don't really care, and that's just that age, right? So I mean, I know they'll come around eventually, right? But
They're in the selfish stage right now.
Exactly.
that's it. You know it, girl. Thank you for. I didn't want to say it, but that's it. Yeah. And
They all go
right?
through
And I
it.
get it.
Please do.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of them never come out of it.
Against them. I mean, if someone.
Go ahead. Let her go through it, please. We're listening.
Not just some of them never come out of it. They just.
Oh.
But they're kids. We've all went through selfish stages. Just not everybody grows out of it.
Yeah, and hopefully that does not.
My question for him is, does he ever have
time I see
himself?
Yeah, I see it in many
You're cutting
adults. You're right. You're definitely right.
Brian, I wondered, do you have any sort of professional support, whether nursing assistance or anything like that you could bring in there?
Do you have any respite care? Any type of care? What do you do for you? I mean, this is a lot of pressure. I'm just concerned about how you're handling all of this and maintaining.
Oh, well, I do. I lots of them, and it helps with the stress. And I like the art. And when I'm done, I'm not in pain anymore. I also
Sorry,
have
I cannot hear you well,
heavy
Brian. You can
Yeah,
repeat?
Brian, you're
bag
cutting out from all of us. We cannot hear you well.
that
And there's about like 5 people
help
that are about to join you guys. Just letting you know. So hold on.
but you know, I exercise a lot, but no, I don't. I don't have. It actually is about 50 to 80 bucks an hour to have a nurse or a caregiver come and go in and
Well, okay, so there we go. So Stephanie's going to join us in a minute. We have Michelle, who's going to join us in just a second, and Esmeralda.
Let's see. So, Amir, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm listening.
Amir, why don't you share a little bit about your loss? Amir, I'll start it for you if you want.
Okay. Actually, I lost my father when I was 32. It was 4 years ago. So, it was really shocking because my dad was very healthy. He couldn't believe that. Um, it was, you guys, you can hear me, right?
Yeah, we can
Yes.
hear you. You're good.
Yeah, it was too much pain, but I can tell you worse than this was last year when I lost my very close friend. We were friends for 17 years, and he was a professional athlete, and suddenly heart attack happened to him. And the worst part is, after his death, a friend of mine who lives in London, he called me and said, "Oh, me in his dreams that I'm gonna be the next one." I don't believe in this stuff, maybe, but he told me, you're supposed to be next one because I saw you in my dreams that we were all together, we all friends from university. And that friend who passed away, he told him, I'm waiting for Amir. I don't believe in this stuff, but it was kind of shock because I'm still young. I'm 36 years old and not sick, but the same happened to my friend and my dad. Um, but I'm ready to go. I'm ready for that, but I just want to know the reason and if you have the same experience or it's just for me or in my circle, my friends, this stuff happening.
How old was your friend when he passed away?
Where's Brian?
Actually, he was 38 years old.
He was 38.
Yeah.
And he hadn't had any health problems before that.
No, he was a professional athlete.
But he had, and what was his cause? Now, how sudden was it? Was he, did he just drop dead? I don't mean to be rude. Or was it, he was just suddenly became very ill?
Um, Actually, as long as I know, he was not sick, and it happened like in a moment. This heart attack. Yeah.
So there wasn't anything before that at all, so that you know. Now, how about your dad?
Actually, my dad, he was doctor, and he took care of his health but the same thing happened to him, heart attack. Well, he was 62 years old, but my friend just 38.
Yeah, 38.
Yeah.
Well, 62 is still pretty young, but 38 is very young.
Stephanie.
I think I'm in here.
You're here. Hi, Stephanie. Thank you.
you.
There you go. I'm so happy. That means that. How did you get in here, Stephanie? Was it the link I sent you?
It was the link you sent me. I clicked on the link you sent me.
Okay, so that's working. That's good to know.
Yeah. And I have the video turned off because I'm on my phone and that seems to slow me down a lot.
That's okay.
So I'm just on audio.
That's just fine. However you feel more comfortable. Well, thank you for joining us, Stephanie. It's been really difficult. Please tell the people about yourself. We are still having issues with other people trying to get in, but you're doing some great work on hospice, and you've studied at University of Dallas, and you've done a lot.
I've been in hospice for just about 11 and a half years now. So yeah, it's been quite a while. I'm a grief counselor, and
Okay.
I do quite a lot of public speaking about death and dying and grief and loss, and it's my calling, it's my passion. So I'm just grateful that you've put this group together, and I get to meet everybody.
Well, thank you. I've tried. We've had some serious technical difficulties here, and I actually paid for this business Google platform to make things easy, but they will be hearing me or from me.
Good. You need to make sure they do.
Oh, they will, because I've lost about 30 people during this call who
Oh, no.
I'm still trying to. Well, they're still on Facebook trying to get in. There's about 4 people. So I've sent them the link, but it's good to know that it worked for you. If it worked for you.
I clicked on the because I got the email and it still just did that loading thing. But when I clicked on the one that you sent me in Facebook Messenger, it came right to it. So who knows?
Yeah. Technical difficulties, they're difficult.
So Stephanie, can you tell us a little about how you were kind of called to this work?
Oh my goodness, I don't want to take up a lot of everybody's time.
No, please go ahead.
Well, it's kind of a funny story. I'm actually, this is my 3rd career, basically. I was initially, my first degree is in theater. I was an actress and a singer for about 10 years. And then I got married, and I was in the world of financial services for almost 10 years. And my life has been one of those, every time a door closed and I thought my life was ending, it was actually opening up. My future was opening up for me. But I have been fascinated, for lack of a better term, by death and dying since I was a teenager. And
just like me.
Not in a morbid, kind of goth kind of way, but just really with no fear and just a whole lot of curiosity. And I did a lot of work with an AIDS support group as a volunteer counselor in the late 80s, which was long before many of you were even born, but that was kind of like, just trial by fire to be in Houston in an AIDS group in the late 80s. The only place where there was more of that kind of work probably was San Francisco and New York at that time, and I learned a lot then. But I just, I always say I backdoored my way into being a grief counselor, because when the company that I was an executive of in 2003 went belly up, as many companies did then, on the eve of a merger, and I was suddenly out of a job, and I realized how miserable I had been, and I decided to take 6 months off and collect unemployment and volunteer for hospice. And
Oh,
In that 6 months, people started talking to me about how they thought I needed to be a bereavement coordinator, and couldn't imagine it. But anyway, I did, and I have an undergraduate degree in that now, and a couple of 3 different certifications, and that's how it happened.
wow.
So,
That's really amazing. So you loved it you always loved it, and then it just kind of came to you.
yeah, basically that is in a very roundabout. But when I look back on the trajectory of my life, which you're far too young to really get.
Oh, you have no idea how old I am.
Well, you're probably a very old soul.
Oh, I'm an extremely old soul. I hope this is my last time around.
Maybe it will be.
I think so. I'm in my 90s, actually.
Are you?
Well, yes, my colleague and really good friend Ted could tell you that. And I don't know where our friend Amir is. He could probably tell you that too.
I'm here. I'm here
we
listening to you
can't
guys.
see you. But
Can you hear me?
we can hear you.
We can
yes.
hear you.
All right.
So, Stephanie, this is probably a question people always ask you because you're from Texas and you're involved in
Yeah.
in AIDS and grief and all of that stuff. Did you have what's his name, the Dallas Buyers Club, Ron Woodruff?
No, I did not. No, it's funny. I say I didn't. He may have been in one of the sister groups, actually, at that time. But I was in Houston, and there was still a whole lot of anonymity at that time. We had a lot of heterosexual couples that the husbands had not come out even to themselves as being bisexual until they had already infected their wives. And that was a very, very challenging dynamic at the time. I'm actually trying to get ready to start writing about this. And
Oh, great.
yeah, so.
It seems like it would be a difficult dynamic at any time, but could you tell us a little bit about sort of the dynamic where somebody would start having to confront that stuff with a partner who doesn't really even know about the
Well, you know, this was what, 30 years ago now.
We have somebody else here, I think.
Oh, please, I feel like I'm talking. Doing all the
No,
talking.
please
No,
go
no.
ahead. You're good.
Are you getting more of your people in?
Keep talking.
Keep talking.
Yes, we have Brian here. And hey, Yeshwant. Hi, can you hear us? Hello.
I'm not.
Can you hear us?
Uh-oh, somebody left.
No, it goes.
No, I can.
They're here.
Yeah, I think he's not. Still trying to get the sound connection.
Yashwant?
Okay, well, let's go back. Stephanie, we got you started talking about something I'm kind of curious about.
Okay.
I think the thing that comes to me is there's a transition that people make from being well and healthy and then suddenly having to deal with these sort of unexpected issues. And in a lot of ways, I think the whole AIDS crisis started to open people's eyes. I mean, people didn't really talk about death, and people didn't really talk about the kind of care that people needed as their health was deteriorating before then. It wasn't.
I agree.
Hello?
That's very true.
What happened?
I'm not sure.
Everybody else seems to have disappeared.
Everyone?
I can't. I suddenly can only hear. I can't hear anybody else.
Uh-oh. I can hear you. Can you
Okay,
hear
I
me?
can hear you. Amir, can I hear you?
Can you hear me?
Yep, you're
Yeah.
there. And
I'm
Stacy?
still here.
Okay.
I'm
Poor
here.
Stacy. I love you, Stacy. I really do.
Yeah, I earned my spot in here. I'm not leaving
You're-
just yet.
I love you. Are so
Oh,
cute.
you were from the very beginning, when there was nothing at all happening. So it took us a while to get connected here. And Stacy was actually the only one who was connected for a while.
Just an update. I have people telling me they're downloading the app, and there are a couple people trying to remember their passwords, and so they're still trying. So that's good.
Yeah, don't hesitate to talk about this, Stephanie. Don't feel
Yeah,
like you're
please,
dominating
Stephanie,
the
keep going. You're
discussion.
not dominating. Keep going.
Well, I actually it makes me. I mean, this what you're talking about with the AIDS epidemic when it first came out, and unfortunately, there are many things that are not all that different now, but we're experiencing something. It's not an AIDS related death, but in our hospice right now, a gentleman who's I think he's 57, and he has end-stage esophageal cancer, and he's being cared for by his 26-year-old son, from whom he's been estranged for the last 10 years. And the son left his home 2 states away and came here with his dog to take care of his father, and had lots of kind of like Hallmark Channel movie ideas of what reconciliation with his dying father would be like. And of course, it's been nothing like that. And the dynamic of what you mentioned, Ted, about you go from being well to suddenly it seems like you're dying, and then you throw in this formerly estranged son and all the dynamics that go along with trying to do a reconciliation. Is, to me, I always tell them it's like trying to do brain surgery on a battlefield, because they're trying to build a relationship in this highly volatile time in a very limited amount of time.
Yeah, I think one of the problems in that sort of estrangement is that you don't know when the tensions are resulted from the estrangement or from just the day-to-day dealing with the illness.
And that's very true. And sometimes there's just no way to extricate one from the other.
The esophageal cancer is a particularly insidious, I think, because I've known a couple of people, I've lost a couple of people who are actually close, and it can come very quickly.
And he actually went through a misdiagnosis, too, where by the time they finally got the diagnosis right, the disease was very, very far in progression. So he has a lot of legitimate anger about that. This is one of the most interesting cases that I've seen in all my years of doing this, and there's a whole other sides to this gentleman, and I was talking with my team today. I don't know that he will. Of course, our goal is to get someone to experience a good death, depending upon what their definition of a good death is, which is certainly not necessarily mine or my team's. But he is so afraid of dying that I don't know that I've ever seen anyone this afraid of dying.
Because if I may, Stephanie, with all of your experience and everything, of course. I think if it may be due to, are you there, Stephanie?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Oh, okay. Could it be due to perhaps being too attached to the material world? At times, a lot of dying patients have this problem where they're too attached to this side and afraid to let go. And
You're absolutely right. That's a big part of it. Another part with him, I live in the Texas Panhandle, which is an extremely conservative, very I'm trying to think of the right word for it. Just extreme. It's a very paradoxical place. We have the kindest, most loving people you can imagine, but at the same time, they're closed-minded, ultra-conservative, and the same people that will stop and help you change a tire on the highway will damn you to hell if they find out you're not a Christian.
oh,
And it is very, very, very challenging. But what you're saying about his attachment to the world is so clear, but he doesn't see it that way because he has a relationship with a evangelical pastor who is telling him that God will heal him. The only reason God hasn't healed him is because his faith isn't strong enough.
I've decided to, speaking on the issue of God, I was in the hospital a few nights ago, and I've decided to call God, or whatever it is out there, he, she, it, maybe the source. They asked me, do you have a religious preference? I said, yeah, the source. So the lady looked at me and says, that's an interesting one, the source. I said, yeah, the magnificent, the good old creator of all this beautiful, the majesty himself or itself, the source. That's my religion.
Well, there's this idea that I kind of was introduced to recently, but I guess I've known about it all along. The idea that the wages of sin are death, which what's implicit in there is you're not getting better because you're a sinner.
Exactly.
You're dying because you're a sinner.
Exactly.
And if you weren't wrong and hadn't done bad things, this wouldn't be happening to you.
That's right. And with the conversations, I spent 2 hours with him this afternoon. Where I go with him, of course, one of the big things in hospice, and forgive me if you are all in hospice and know this already, but we are supposed to be without any sort of religion. I mean, it doesn't matter what I believe, and we're supposed to meet them where they are. And
exactly.
What I try to get him to perhaps consider is, number one, God, the source, he, like you say, he, she, it, the universe is what I usually call it.
Exactly.
Its definition of healing is not necessarily mine and not necessarily the patient's. I have absolutely no doubt that he will be healed, but I don't think any of us are capable of determining what the universe means by healing. That healing, as you said, may be not having to come back again,
Exactly. And it could very well be that.
But all he can see with the quote-unquote help from this preacher is that his faith is not strong enough, and so he has this tremendous fear that he will not name as fear, because if he names it as fear, then it really means his faith is not strong enough, and so he's in this vicious cycle. And we'll talk, and he'll get just so close, and I can see it go across his face. I can see his body language change. as he begins to actually entertain the thought that maybe it's okay to be afraid, and that maybe if he talks about it, he'll become less afraid, and then he stops himself. I mean, you can just watch it happen. And this is a man who is so afraid of dying that he will not sleep in his bed alone. He makes his son sleep with him and wants his son to stay awake to watch him breathe, because he's afraid he will die in his sleep, which is how most people
Hi, Brian.
die.
Hi, Brian. Is that you?
Brian seems to be back.
Okay, good to see you back, Brian.
So, Stephanie, this really doesn't. This kind of precludes any sort of discussion about what, I'm not going to quite say a good death for him would be, but for what finding some sort of peace in the time that he has to come.
It does, and even after doing this for over a decade, I really have personally am struggling to come to terms with the fact. I mean, I've seen quote unquote bad deaths, only a couple, but I don't know that he will get there before his body gives out, you know. And on a professional and personal level, that's really hard for me to say I can be okay with, and yet of course I have to be. Ultimately it's his choice, his death. And
Stephanie, can I ask you a question? So, working with all of this, how do you care for yourself? It's a question I had for Brian as well. He's going through, you know, his story is pretty interesting as well. But
my mother just died.
So did mine.
In July. Did she? Yeah.
Yeah, my mother just died.
Actually, then, I mean, you understand. It is, I don't do a very good job of taking care of myself. I'll just say.
Oh, thank you for your honesty, Stephanie. I can't express to you like the joy I just felt.
Oh, really?
No. And I just want to say that it's been the hardest thing for me, and I've been struggling very much with it. And I'll be very honest. The only thing that feeds me is helping other people, and that's really what.
Me too.
That's what my mom passed on April 7th, not to cut you off, but on April 7th. And about 2 weeks before her death, we had her precious dog, who was very precious, die. And about 3 months before that, my grandfather, who was my father growing up, because my biological father died when I was 18 months old, who raised me up until I was 8 years old, he also died. So, but death and dying's always been my thing. That's not the reason I started this group or any of that stuff. But yeah, please go on. So it's been difficult. It is. It's very hard.
It's very difficult, and I could tell you all the things that I tell my patients to do, and things that I know work, because I've seen it. I've seen them work, and some of them I write about on my blog. But it's a completely different thing when it's yourself, and sometimes there are times, especially now in the holidays, where I actually feel like I'm drowning in death.
Oh, I love you. I just love you. I just want to say how much I love you for your honesty and for sharing that grief, because it really is the only thing that's soothing to me, particularly.
Well, I thank you for. Clearly, I must feel safe enough.
Yeah.
With this group of strangers to do it, but I would not want to. It wouldn't be fair for me to say, "Oh, I'm just doing great and I'm just sailing through this," and I'm not. But what you said, helping others, is really the only time that there seems to be relief for me.
Me too. That's actually all that's left for me.
Yeah.
And my good friend he's actually my best friend, Ted, as you can see. He's been there. I've known Ted for a while, and he's a colleague of mine, and he's been through a lot of loss himself, but he can speak for himself. But he's seen me at my worst, and it hasn't been easy to know that, especially when you lose a mother. I think that's when, in psychology, when we study about, what goes on in the womb and all that stuff, I think the cord really gets cut when we lose a mother. It doesn't matter the relationship, I feel.
No, and in fact, the more ambiguous, I see this with my patients a lot, children of abusive parents, who once the parent or parents are physically dead and gone, the adult child is usually really overwhelmed at the level of grief and loss, and I think that's because regardless of how much you may come to terms with an abusive relationship with a parent, and intellectually, I think there is still a little child inside who thinks, well, maybe someday they'll be the parent I thought they were going to be.
Someday they'll love me. Someday they'll be proud of me, and then
exactly.
Yeah, someday I'll be good enough.
Exactly. And so when they die, when that physical body and that possibility of that is finally completely gone, the grief is overwhelming.
It's a kick in the teeth.
Yes, it is. It is.
It has been. Ted looks like he's about to cry.
Oh yeah, you can see me, can't you?
Yeah, it's okay.
My little box is down in the corner, so I can actually see what I look like. But yeah, I find that to be tremendously compelling testimony there. I think, we carry a lot of anger with us that we never really confront. We carry a lot of expectations, and that expectation for resolution. And I saw Stacy connecting to that. And I think our parents are part of who we are, whether in a positive or negative way. And when they go, that part of who we are disappears.
Yes. Well, and this is just my own personal belief, but I believe we travel in soul tribes. The Native Americans spoke of it, and I certainly, in volatile or abusive relationships, for me it always seems that whatever lessons that part of the tribe is supposed to be learning, if those don't get resolved, I feel very fortunate because my mother was very abusive when I was little, and we had a horrible relationship, but in the last 8 years of her life, things happened, and I wound up being her caretaker. And
oh my God, Stephanie.
We did some healing that I would never, ever in my wildest imaginings have thought possible, and so
yes,
it was a huge blessing for me.
Stephanie, I don't know. I may have known you in a past life or something.
Well, we may have. I mean, to me, that's what the whole soul tribe thing is about.
Stephanie, when my mother was diagnosed with lung cancer, she asked, I'm the only daughter. She never got remarried after losing my father, and I asked her she says, I don't want chemo. If I'm going to die, I want to die naturally.
Yeah.
And I said, so what are you willing to do? Because you don't really expect me to just sit here and watch you rot, do you? Because that's really unfair. And so she says, no, I would like to go see John of God. I don't know if you
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, and see, I'm like a big Sedona person, so
Yeah.
yeah, you know, I know you know.
Yeah.
So I just know you've been where I've been over there, and listen, and so that's just my place to go and run away from the world. And every time I used to go there, I used to video chat with her and show her where I am. And I promised her I would take her there. I would have much rather took her there to the healers than to have taken her to the other place.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, but that's what she wanted. What was I going to do? And I took her there, but unfortunately it didn't work out. And you know, but you are also a total Sedona person.
Do you guys know that there is, because I would love to go to this, but in Sedona there is a, they hold it I think twice a year, and it's for, I forget what the actual certification is called, but it's a certification in traumatic grief. And it's held in Sedona twice a year. I think it's 4 days. It's pretty expensive though. It's like $5,000.
Doesn't surprise me.
But I just think that would be such a tremendous experience and in that place. And I think it's a perfect setting to do something like that, because traumatic grief is a whole different kettle of fish. One of the presentations I did this year at the Texas New Mexico annual organization, hospice organization, was on the grief of suicide, and all grief related to a death by suicide is traumatic grief, and in fact has more symptoms in common with PTSD than
Yes.
with anything else, you know. So,
Go on.
well, I was just thinking when you said Sedona that you would really, and I will see if I can't find a link to it and get it to you, because you might really want to look into that.
Well, tell us a little bit more about what other things classify as traumatic grief. Is it
Well, technically, here's where I need to probably put in a disclaimer, because of the way that I backdoored my way into what I truly believe is my calling. I really believe this is what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. But I don't necessarily look at things the same way someone does who got out of high school, went to college, was a psych major, decided to become accountant. I mean, it's so to answer you in that way, I have a real issue. Last year, they made complicated grief an actual disease in the DSM-4
Yes.
manual, and I just don't even get me on the soapbox about that, because grief is not an illness.
No, it's something I believe that you learn to live with. It's something that doesn't go away.
No, it's a life experience. It's not a disease.
Wow.
However, there are certain deaths, certain kinds of deaths, certain circumstances of deaths that happen in certain times of life that do have a traumatic aspect to it. Suicide and murder, first and foremost. But also there can be sudden deaths, even if it's just from an accident, a car accident, or a cerebral hemorrhage. And depending upon what the life circumstances are, the grief can definitely be traumatic. I still don't believe that means there's illness involved. It just means that there are traumatic aspects to the grief experience that I say I'm not experiencing from the normal in-order death of my mother. You know, not that it isn't hard, it is, but if she had chosen to take her own life, or if she had been shot, or
But may I ask you a question? What is taking your own life? Does it have to be, necessarily taking a gun to your head or taking a knife to the carotid? Can it just be choosing not to get treatment for, for an illness and just...
I definitely think it can be that, but I believe, like everything else in our lives, it's about the intention. And I think that there is a more violent, or maybe a more traumatic aspect to an intention, the intention of putting a gun to your head, than there is when you're faced with a life-limiting or terminal diagnosis and you make the choice like your mother did. To me, that's not suicide. To me, that is making a choice of how I am going to end my life as much as I can. I think it's very, very different when someone has been given a terminal diagnosis than if someone is making a choice to end their life out of psychological or emotional or spiritual despair. Does that make sense?
Of course. Of course.
There's something that we have talked about in past about suicide being an act of anger. And there might be that component. Often people kill themselves to punish somebody else.
Absolutely.
And
There's an excellent book that I recently read because I've been seeing just oh my gosh, a tremendous, and when you're in Amarillo, Texas, and you start to see a pattern of young adult suicides, it's really scary. But I've been seeing it, and really in the few months since my mother died, I have had referred to me the parents or the siblings or the lovers of 7 different suicides of young adults between the ages of 17 and 24. And I am just almost desperate to try to figure out at what point what's happened in our society where it has become such an option. Just such an option. So anyway, there's a book called Stay, S-T-A-Y, that and forgive me, I cannot think of the name of the woman who wrote it, but it's excellent because she is actually a poet herself, and she took on the research for this book when 2 dear poet friends of hers chose to take their own life within a 12-month period of time. And she began to ask the questions that I'm asking, which is why? So she did a lot of research, and she looked all the way back to Aristotle, but looked for secular reasons or secular arguments against suicide, things other than just, well, God says it's a sin, which I found so interesting because, again, I'm in Amarillo, Texas, where you think if there's any place in the U.S. where a fear of God is going to keep someone from taking their own life, it's Amarillo, Texas. And not even that seems to be enough for some of these really young people. And so she just chronologically looks at these secular reasons for not taking your own life, and at the end of it she came up with 2 that seemed to be a thread that ran through history. The first being that we owe it to the human community to stay alive, because there is such a thing as suicide contagion. And as soon as you see one person, even if it's just Robin Williams. I mean, look at the
Oh,
what
yes.
his death, his choice did to so many of us. As soon as you show that as an option, it becomes an option for others. So we have a responsibility simply as members of the human community to stay alive, to keep ourselves alive. And then the second reason, which I just found so interesting, is that we owe it to our future self. And the way she explained that was that, say, if you're 19 years old and all you can see is that the only way to end this pain, which is what every suicide is, it's about ending pain, ultimately, is
Yeah.
to take your own life. You don't know what your future is going to hold. You really don't. You can say, well, historically it hadn't been all that good, and I don't have a lot of hope, but truthfully, literally, you don't know none of us know who we are going to be in 3 years' time or 3 minutes' time. And we owe it to that future self to give them a chance to see if it can't get better. And she just makes such to see it historically across millennia of writings and for it not to have a religious bent to it. It's a very, very, very good book. It's a very good book.
Yeah,
It is. Yeah, go
that's
ahead.
Stay by Jennifer Michael Hecht.
Yes, thank
Yeah,
you.
A History of Suicide and the Philosophies Against It.
Yeah.
You were talking about the wave of suicides, and this reminded me, I've just been reading an article in the Atlantic Monthly about the suicide clusters at Palo Alto High School. And apparently they've been having, for a couple of years, they've been just blocks of suicides there. And it seems as if they now have grief counselors who are permanently at the school because they occur at certain times during the year, and it's always kids that nobody thought had a problem. So
It's frightening to me, not just from what it is, but from the loss of hope that it represents. And in that age group, it's just what the phrase that just comes back to me over and over and over again is that it's just become such an option. It's just such an option.
I think in a lot of ways we kind of reinforce the idea that it is an option. There's a sort of mythology that goes along with suicide. And
You're right.
It sort of resonates. I have a story I'm going to tell you. When I was in high school, in junior high school actually, there was this girl in theater, because I was in theater in school. Her name was Honey Siders, and she was always in the class play of the year, or particularly the musicals. In her senior year, she didn't get the lead, and she killed herself.
Wow.
And it was quite disconcerting. She was an only child, and we all knew her because she'd been in all of the shows forever. But it seemed like it was a very well-defined path, and it was an option under certain circumstances. And I wonder why it is that we reinforce those ideas.
Well, in that book, she actually there are a couple of essays, and I'm so bad with names, but that she refers to about just that, and it does become, it's kind of like you hear people talk about walking across a bridge, and they almost felt called to step off of it, and I think suicide, I think it calls to us, even to people for whom it's not really an option. And then you get some of it who, I always call it, if you've never stood at the edge of the abyss and heard the voices from the abyss that are talking to you, what people don't understand who haven't experienced that, they don't understand that those voices from the abyss they're not terrible sounding voices. They're the sweetest voices you've ever heard. And it doesn't matter that they're lying, because it doesn't sound like lies. It's they promise peace.
They say what you want to hear.
Exactly. That's it.
Those would be the sirens in the Odyssey.
Yes, exactly. And those are the voices in the abyss. It's not devils calling out to you. It's the sirens singing. And what I see in the survivors of suicide is so often the ones who struggle the most are the ones who have never stood on the edge of the abyss. If you get a brother or a sister or a cousin or a lover who has,
Right.
their grief is totally different than the parent or the brother or the spouse or whoever who doesn't get it, who just can't fathom any world in which they could take their own life. They struggle with the grief, in my experience, even more, because there's no way they can wrap their head around what happened.
That's kind of interesting.
You know, I if I may for a moment, I had a patient. You know, I'll be graduating as a social worker, Stephanie, and I'm working on starting my own nonprofit at the same time that has to do with the whole death and dying.
That's wonderful.
Thank you. And so my long-term goal is, you know, I want to have an interfaith cemetery, or cemeteries, memorial garden, you know, and it'll be quite something quite different than what we're used to. I have it in my head, and I'd like to provide grants and loans for, you know, students who are interested in aging and social work or hospice and palliative care, respite care, that type of thing. And it would be based on not just, oh, fill out this application and you know what, you're approved for a grant or a loan, but it would be based on a very strict interview with them, because we need people in the healthcare industry, especially with the aging and you know, gerontology, geriatrics, and death and dying, end-of-life issues, terminally ill patients, nurses, social workers, the whole team, who actually from the bottom of their hearts really want to do this.
Oh,
They're not in there for the wrong reasons, because there's a lot of you know, senior abuse going on, and as you know, a lot of things that just shouldn't be happening. And our friend Native 69 here, I'm sure she's seen and been through a lot of this stuff. So, but the short-term goal is to kind of raise awareness around the subject of death and dying, because it's such a taboo for the Westerners here. And
well, what kind of response are you getting to that? To wanting to raise the awareness, you know, to
with the baby boomer generations, because I work with senior citizens, 60 and older, they're very hard to work with. They're not the easiest, because I'm having a group that's put together. They can bring their advocates, they can bring someone with them, and my supervisor and I will be talking about death and dying and how to prepare yourself, why it's important. to be prepared before it actually happens, why it's important to talk to your family about it, and do your paperwork before and in case you become mentally incapacitated to make decisions on your own behalf, and what are the repercussions to that.
Right.
And kind of covering the Care Planning Act of 2015 as well, and what that means, you know, and how we're going through a transition as a whole nation in terms of death and dying issues here. And many people have it confused. Some people don't even know the difference between palliative and hospice care.
Oh no, they don't. They definitely don't.
Some people think euthanasia has something to do with, you know, like hospice, and hospice is this place that's going to kill people, and
Oh,
that's not the case, you know. But anyway, I wasn't trying to, you know, just talk about that real. But on what you were saying, which didn't have anything to do. I said this for a reason. You remind me. We were talking about.
I don't know. I followed you so well that my brain started thinking about all this
Sorry,
stuff.
yeah.
you're
Once
talking
I
about.
start talking, I just get a clear idea. Oh, here's Teresa. Great. Afro, Teresa, hi. You're
Hi.
finally here.
Finally.
Oh, it's so good to have you. Thank you for joining us.
I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. I'm so sorry for all the trouble. I paid for a platform so you guys would not have to go through this, and look what happened.
Well, they
it would
need
help.
to give you a free one.
Yeah, but they're going to need to do more than that. I may just have to do something else. I searched around a lot, but it's okay. But I'm just glad that you're here. You're joining us. Thank you. And there's a couple more people still trying. They haven't given up.
Okay.
Teresa, tell us a little bit about you.
I'm grateful that everybody was patient with me. I was on my iPhone.
That's
And,
why.
that's why.
You're not the only one.
Okay.
Go on. It's good to see your beautiful face. Really nice.
Yeah, is there a light in the room that you can turn on, Teresa, so it'll look kind of ghostly there?
Okay, I'll have to get up.
I like ghostly. I think it looks great. You're comfortable, however you are.
She disappeared. I didn't mean for that.
Well, no, she went probably to turn on a light now.
Yeah.
That's a little
Turn on a
better.
light. Yeah. I'll adjust my camera.
So tell us, Teresa, a little bit about yourself.
Oh, geez. Well, I'm 57, I think.
Ha!
Yeah, 57, and I live up in northern Minnesota. There's a blizzard out last night, so we've been digging out. Not really a lot of snow. It's melted mostly, but I'm here because I have end-stage liver disease, and I just found out I had cancer again of the liver. And I'll go ahead and do the chemoembolization. However, 3 years ago they gave me a year and a half. So I'm just kind of trying to make do what I can. I can't. I'm not going to go for a liver transplant because I've got a lot of other things going on as a
So,
result.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I have a bad echo going on here. I don't know why. Hold on 1 second. Okay. What have you decided on doing?
Well, I was on a liver transplant list, but I went off of that list. I had cancer before, and the chemoembolization turned to tumor, and they took me off the transplant list, but now it's come back. And I have cirrhosis, non-alcohol related cirrhosis, and
Yes.
NASH, and hemochromatosis, portal hypertension, esophageal varices that I've had bleed out 3 times. So I
Oh,
was able to get to the hospital in time. And so I'm just kind of deciding that I've been fighting this battle for 20 years, and I'm really tired. So I think I just resorted to the fact that I'm just going to write it out. Quality of life versus quantity, all those things going out.
so can I ask you, at this point of your life, after fighting so hard, and I'm actually looking in your eyes, and I actually want to just look in your eyes. Hold on a minute. Thank you for that. Thank you. I'm looking. Uh, I'm looking at death. I'm looking. Yeah. And I've seen this look many times before.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. But you know, I think you're in such a good place. I'll trade places with you. And you look great. Yeah, really. You look wonderful.
I have good days and bad days.
Of course. You're very strong.
I'm tired.
You're tired.
Yeah.
Exhausted.
Um,
I'm sorry, hold 1 second, please.
oh, Teresa, you don't mind my asking a couple of questions. It
No.
seems like you've made a choice, and you seem to be pretty clear about it. I'm wondering how the people around you, your family, your friends, talk to you about this, knowing that you've made this choice. It's the sort of thing I think that people would discourage you from choosing.
Well, I don't have the support that's needed to have a transplant. I don't have the funds. It's about $800,000, and I don't have that kind of money. And or the insurance to cover it on my disability.
Okay, wait a minute. I'm sorry, Teresa. You said the support to do the transplant. What support is it that you need to do the transplant?
Well, every time I went down to the clinic, I've got some issues with my immediate family, my brothers and sisters, and they just think I'm creating drama, and they don't want to be any part of it.
I hear you.
And they just don't want to see it. My mom just died a couple of years ago, and I was in hospice and palliative care with her, and I think that was part of it, because I haven't seen or really heard from them since then. And my sister befriended me again, and
Sounds
told me to
familiar.
leave it alone. Yeah, she didn't want to deal with it. She was doing her own stuff, and I have 7 brothers and sisters, so it's not like I only have 1 or 2. There's plenty of them, but they're scattered around the states, and they're all married, and they all have their kids and their careers, and they don't want to take the time out to have to deal with something that's unpleasant. And so that hurt a lot. But this decision wasn't made just on that basis alone. I know that I would have to take anti-rejection drugs for the rest of my life if I had a liver transplant, and it's not guaranteeing anything. I have a lot of other physical issues that are just as bad. Some of the medicines I've taken have deteriorated my bones to where I was gardening in June and broke my back. So it just zapped a lot of the life out of me trying to get better. And there was a lot of side effects, and there's a lot of people feeling those side effects. And I don't know. I understand that people would try to talk me out of it.
No. Talk you out of what? Suffering?
Yeah, I've been suffering for many years, and I've been sick for many years, and I just really, why prolong the inevitable? It's just like putting a Band-Aid on a big gouging sore.
I know. Teresa, where are you from? Where are you calling us from here? Where are you located? What state?
She's in Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Yeah.
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
You've got the blonde hair and the blue eyes.
Actually, it's great. White.
Well, it looks blonde to me.
Thank you.
So.
We have Stephanie here. Stephanie has been, we have Stephanie, and we also have, God. This has been such a stressful thing. I'm so sorry. We have Stephanie. We have
Stacy.
Yeah, we have Stacy. We have Brian, who will talk. We have Amir, who's also gone through a big loss. I myself have lost 3 people within 4 months this year. So, anyways, but Stephanie, I would love to hear, and Stacy, what do you guys have to say?
Well, Stacy, you go ahead. I've done way too much talking.
Never too much.
Yeah.
No,
Stacy is a great listener.
You have a lot to say that we all wanted to hear, Stephanie. So.
Well, thank you.
You didn't talk for too long.
I don't know. So please, somebody.
I'm finding that being a great listener is much a prerequisite for this job.
That's right.
What do you do, Stacy?
I'm a hospice aide.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you have, I always say that my aides are the ones that have the most important job, and certainly the most intimate.
Thank you. Most people do not see that.
Oh, it's so true. I always when we get a new admission, it's always the aides I talk to first, because you guys are the ones that get the real truth when you're in the shower with them and you're doing all that stuff. You hear things in a way that the nurses don't ever hear.
They'll tell me they've hurt before they even think about telling a nurse or letting a family member know.
It's very true.
I think the people who give the
So there's
just the immediate
Ted,
ongoing attention, those are the people that get to know people better. I don't think doctors probably know their patients less well than nurses and caregivers, people that are there, giving the showers and the baths and feeding the meals and pulling the socks on and off. They know people better than anybody else.
Absolutely.
Once you've wiped somebody's butt, much they're not willing to tell you.
That's it.
I'm sorry, ladies. There's a noise in the background. Is somebody having a radio on or something? There it is. Thank you. I don't know what that was. Actually, it's going on still.
Yeah, I thought it was feedback.
It's an echo somewhere.
is it music or?
It sounds like voices to me. It sounds.
I don't
It may
have
be
any-
some spillover from somebody else's.
Hold on a second. 1 second. Sorry. Amir?
Yes?
Okay, do you have any music or something in the background?
No.
No TV on. Okay, thank you. Brian?
No, it's what it is, Sonora. It's your voice or my voice, whoever's talking about. It's delayed about 2 seconds, so it's some sort of a echo.
Okay.
It's echoing back from someone else's mic.
Yeah, it happens to some of us. It happens to my voice. It doesn't happen to yours, Teresa. And I'm not sure about Stephanie, but my voice definitely.
So go on. Go on, please.
Well, so I know I missed all the initial introductions. Is everybody else, are you end-of-life care professionals, or are you, what's everybody? I hate to ask you to repeat.
Amir, why don't we all introduce ourselves? I'll go ahead and start. My name is Sonora Darriadell, and I am a senior of social work. I minored in management of energy services, and I'm also a nurse, but I'm not a practicing nurse here. I've been in the medical field for 16 years, and I'm specializing in hospice and end-of-life care, palliative care. And terminally ill patients, that's what I've always had a passion to do. So, okay, that's me.
Okay, I'm Ted. I'm not really a professional in any area like that. I've worked a lot in the last couple of years with people who have aging issues. Some with people who were trying to return to the workforce. Some people who were in assisted living or independent living, and to a certain degree, most of the people that I've worked with were confronting health issues, some of which were critical and some of which were just part of the aging process. From my own, I've lost a lot of family in the last couple of years. I had told about my brother, and my mother I lost a year ago in August, and she went through a long period of decline. She had senile dementia, and she was a strong person who was very resistant to any sort of help that anybody wanted to give. So feel a lot of pain at what's just happened to people around me related to end-of-life care.
What about taking off that headset? Maybe that'll stop it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to unplug my headset and see what happens.
I can hear you.
There you go. So keep talking. We can hear you.
I can't hear anybody.
Well, maybe your volume's low.
Still no volume. Oh, actually, I can hear that echo again.
You're the only one echoing here.
Okay, well, why doesn't somebody else talk? Cool with this. Straight now.
Okay. Stacy, Stephanie, Ryan, Amir.
I'm here.
I'm here.
Is there a Stacy? Is there a Stacy?
Yes.
Or, okay. I was just wondering, my nickname is Tracy.
I
And
have
I
a
didn't
sister
know
named Trixie.
Teresa, how much longer are you expected to live, as they call? I mean, you know, these professionals tell you.
Well, I flew them once. 3 years ago, they said a year and a half. So
That's what I love. Don't you love it when they do that?
yeah,
Well, sometimes it really happens. They gave my mom 6 months. She lived 6 months. But
they
sometimes
were right on too. They told me right on, spot on the hospice and palliative care. They knew exactly when my mom was going to go, and so that prepared me and helped me.
So
I
you
had
don't,
two
you
uncles.
don't really have your family support at all, from what I hear.
No, I depend on a lot of groups, and I'm on Facebook quite a bit.
Well, I'm glad you're on Facebook.
It's amazing the friends and the support you can find on Facebook, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of groups out there that are really loving and caring.
I've learned through my life on this realm so far, and I'm gonna stick to this. Is that friends can many times be more than family. You don't have to be blood.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I have 3 children. They're older, they're adults, and my daughter's supportive. However, she lives in Oregon, and I'm in Wisconsin. She's been asking me to come out. Asking me to come out and be with her, but she
You're cutting out, Therese.
went into that kind of a situation. I'm sick and dying. But welcome to the family.
Yeah.
That's a part of my problem too, is having a hard time accepting help.
Accepting help, are you?
Yeah.
And
I've
are
always
you,
been,
but you're conscious of it.
yeah. Only because people have been telling me that I'm not being effective, accepting of help, and I don't know.
It's hard, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I've always been a really stubborn,
You take
independent
care of
person.
yourself, and then all of a sudden you're in a situation that, one, you have to even admit that you need the help, let alone to be willing to accept the help.
Yeah, and the sad part is that I've been a licensed psychologist and counseling for the last 20 years, and I should know more than anyone, asking for help, but
Yeah, but you should
there's
know as well
a
that one is not better, that it's easier to say than to do. It's real easy to say, yeah, you should be able to accept the help, but not quite as easy to actually do it.
yeah,
That's
it's
for sure.
hard. Yeah,
What about it is difficult for you?
my pride.
Oh, I just love you. You know, I just love you. I really do, because you are just so honest about it, and that's what I love about this whole thing. Your
It's
pride.
hard. Yeah,
And what in the world is pride compared to everything that you are passing through, my dear one?
I
I
know.
mean, right?
Yeah, yeah, I know.
It's so small. We human beings, the things that we hold on to, it's beyond me.
I've always been a real strong survivor type of person, and I've always strived to be successful, and I was successful. I had a treatment center for women with dual disorders, chemical dependency, and mental health issues. And so I was always the strong one. Everybody always came to me for help and to talk. And but then it seems like when I need it, everybody dispersed, and I just kind of said, well, okay, I'll do it myself. I'm not going to beg, and that's kind of fun.
Well, success is not defined, in my opinion, just by what you do. Success, I mean, sitting in your seat and being you, for me, that's a lot of success. Yeah, that's a lot of strength right there. I don't know how I would be able to. As much as uh, I'm open about death and dying, about my own death and dying, and even ready for it, however you want to take it. Being in it is one thing.
I don't mind the thought of dying or death, but I'm afraid of the things I'm afraid of is being alone and what actually is going to take place in the people go through it. I've watched people die taking care of my mom when she died, and I know that process. However, I still have a lot of fear around, am I going to be in pain? Am I going to be unconscious? Am I going to, all the unknowns.
Yeah.
All those what ifs.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think any of us know. Right.
Yeah. I was very curious as I watched and was with my mom when she passed away. But she's like, before she left, she reached up and she held my cheek in her hand and she gave me the biggest smile, and her eyes were just twinkling, and I knew she was with my other family members that have already gone. Let me know it was okay. to go and to not be afraid. And that gave me a lot of reassurance as far as the fears, a lot of the fears I could put to rest through that action that she did for me. She was unconscious when she came to just before she died and did that. And she was just like she was already in heaven or wherever you go. And it was really assuring to me that everything was going to be okay.
It will be. No, nobody ever dies alone. I think what happens at, oh dear, my echo is way bad now. Is
Yeah,
it?
I hear you.
Yeah, it's really bad.
No, but it's okay. Please keep going.
It's what I've seen happen so many times. And sometimes it begins to happen months before the actual death. I always say it's the dying have one foot in this world and one foot in the next. And they straddle, they walk a road in between both lives, both existences. And they walk that road, and sometimes both feet are here on this side of the road with us, and sometimes both feet are on the other side in the next world. But it's an experience and a viewpoint that only the dying can see, and it doesn't happen just in the last few moments. And the dying are never alone. I don't care if the room is completely empty. I don't care. They're never alone. I've seen too many people die and heard what they say, and when they come back, when they bring both feet back over here in this world and report what they're seeing and hearing and who they're seeing and what they're experiencing, I've not died myself, Teresa, but I've seen so many people die, and I can tell you, no matter what, you will not be alone. You will not be alone.
Yeah, I remember my mother was dying. It was a day before she died. She was standing before. She was in hospice. My grandfather had died already, and she just got up and she says she stood in front of this window and she opened her arms like this, and the window, it was like, imagine April 6th, and she just, that beautiful weather outside and all that. And she says, I swear, Sonora, I feel like Dad is just waiting for me on the other side with his arms open just to catch me. And I just kind of sat with that, and because I do believe as the material being starts to I don't want to say decompose, because, you know, and it starts to diminish, the soul or the spirit or the energy source of whatever is behind us becomes stronger. So I believe that. She felt something and she saw something I could see. But I did believe it. That's for sure. I agree with Stephanie about not being alone.
What are some other people's backgrounds? I've just kind of pulled in here after everybody else is here.
Brian, Amir. Brian, why don't you share a little bit about your story? It's pretty interesting. Brian, can you hear me? Brian, we can't hear you.
We can see your mouth moving, but we're not hearing anything.
No. There we go. Brian, we can't hear you.
Y'all are all sitting up being all professional, and I'm laying in bed.
No, you're fine. It's actually comforting to watch you laying there.
I want to see the dog again.
Which one?
Oh, I just thought it looked like a little black and white.
There's 3 little black and white ones.
Yeah, I want to see your dog too, and I'll show you mine. Come on, Lily.
Well, okay.
Hello, who are you?
That's Jada. That's the mama. This is Biddy. She's the daughter.
Oh my gosh, they're so cute.
And Bubba, I don't know where he is. He's the dad. Running around here somewhere.
You're surrounded by all this love, space. That's wonderful. My little ones won't come.
Who is that, Ted? Who is that?
Oh, she went to Ted. Ted is actually in my house. We couldn't share the same computer space, so he's sitting on one end and I'm on the other.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's
Oh, she's so cute.
That's my dog. Her name is Lily, and she's about 11 and a half years old. She's been with me since she was 2 months old.
Hello, Lily. Oh, she's so cute.
She's been through a lot.
He's a pretty, pretty girl.
Thank you.
I think Brian got back.
Yeah, he did. Brian? No. No. Yeah. Go ahead while Brian's trying to.
Okay, something to Treasure. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Uh, okay, I do believe the other word is much better than
You're cutting out.
this word. Actually, we so
Amir, I'm sorry, but
there
you're
is
cutting out. You're cutting out. Your voice is not clear. It's coming in and out.
Okay, maybe my connection is not good. So let me close and join back, okay?
Well, that made it quiet.
Well, Brian is apparently having troubles. Brian? What's going on, Brian? You were good and going all this time. He's out again. He'll be back. Interesting. I'm really sad that there were 32 people, and for some reason, whatever I did to get everyone in one room didn't work out.
There he is.
Oh well, I guess it was meant to be this way.
It absolutely was. Never doubt that. Everybody who's supposed to be here tonight
It's here. Yeah.
is here.
As I'm speaking with you all on Facebook, I have other hospice workers and actually patients and a doctor who's still trying to join, and Google's giving them problems, but they're not giving up.
Do you hear me?
I can hear you.
Go ahead and talk. So. Amir, can you please go ahead and try and talk?
Okay, sure. Okay. I mean the other word is much better than this word. I really believe that here our body is like a cage for our soul. I mean, I really wish to like die. I don't call it dying. It's just traveling to somewhere better. You know. That's all what I wanted to tell you.
So you feel that dying is going to be somewhere much better than where we are?
Exactly.
I'll go along with that. Sounds good
Because
to me.
yes, because our body, you know, is like a cage. And when we pass away, we open this cage door and we can travel, we can fly anywhere we want.
Yeah.
Are you guys agree with me?
It's possible.
You're on mute, Ted.
I'm on mute.
Yeah, you're on mute. So you might want to unmute. I agree with you. I believe that this body is actually just the clothing that's going to drop off. Or you call it a cage, I call it a prison. What's the difference? Yeah, I feel like I'm stuck in this thing. I want to fly, be free of all the pain down here. That's me. How about you guys? How do you guys feel?
For me, I'm kind of looking forward to it because I've been.
I just love you.
I've nothing enough. And you know, I like that thought of just. I believe that too. Just using the soul and wherever that takes me. I've always been an adventurer, so I'm along for the ride. Wherever my soul goes, that's where it's gonna be. I don't know, so I have to have that adventurous thought process and look forward to it.
That is so nice to hear. I have to say, I love to hear you say that. I really do. And your smile and everything about you. Yeah, I'm going to post a rule on here. No yawning on the video, please.
Oh,
No yawning on the video. You're still on mute, by the way, Ted.
I thought that I was.
Stephanie, how do you feel about what Amir was saying about the body being a cage?
I agree. I mean, I think was it a C.S. Lewis quote that says, "You are not a body with a soul. You are a soul with a body."
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that we, especially in the West, we constantly struggle between paying too much attention to the body and not paying enough of the right kind of attention to the body. Poor Brian's having awful time.
Can anybody hear me yet?
Okay.
Oh,
There we go.
Yay!
Hooray!
We're
That's
here.
terrible.
Well, good. So, yeah. Good to hear you again. God.
I don't know what happened to my sound. I could hear you guys. It just died out. That's weird.
Go on, Brian. We've missed hearing about you and all this.
All right. Well, obviously I've had a lot of personal involvement with this family and friends, obviously. But in my last year of my crim degree, I actually picked it as my final thesis to write on what's called physician-assisted suicide. So at the time, actually, Canada, where I live in Canada, it was a criminal offense. It was actually murder if you get caught being involved with or helping or anything to do with it. So, and that's been since the 1992 Sue Rodriguez case. I don't know if you guys remember that, but anyway, so that actually case was finally reviewed again. And actually, while I was writing my paper, the Supreme Court was actually hearing the issue at the same time. So I theorized what I thought was going to happen, and strangely enough, the court actually ruled comparisons to what I was writing, and so I ended up being able to write before, during, and after the legislative changes, and then I actually compared other countries. There's 192 countries that we work with. So I compared their laws, and then eventually what happened is the government of Canada actually, after the Supreme Court ruling, they invoked actual legislation to now legalize suicide in Canada, and that all happened this year. And what's happened, though, it's not like you guys are probably aware in other countries in the world, such as Belgium, the Netherlands, Germany. There's several countries where a suicide, or I should say, assisted suicide, is.
I'm sorry, I just don't get where this is because the fact that the doctor is not. It's a personal choice. I mean, come on. Am I alone when I think that? I don't know.
Well, that's what I mean. It is obviously, but the law didn't agree with it, right? Anybody was. I don't know if you're aware of Dr. Kevorkian. He's nicknamed Dr. Death. Okay, yeah. So he was heavily involved with assisted suicide back in the 80s and 90s.
Was that in relation to the Hemlock Society?
I'm not sure. Could have been. Sounds familiar, right? The Hemlock Society. but I don't know a lot about. He didn't come out about being affiliated anywhere. But he wanted to basically assist those that were suffering greatly in being able to end their life with his assistance. And so he created a machine, and he actually installed it in his van, and he drove around North America assisting people to die. And eventually he got caught in Canada, where it was illegal up till this year to be anyone involved in anyone's suicide. In fact, it holds a murder rap here in Canada. So that's basically 10 years in jail. And so the patient back then that he was helping, Sue Rodriguez, made the attempt to change the law then. She was unsuccessful. And in fact, Dr. Kevorkian did assist her in her suicide, and he was charged for murder. He ended up doing many, many years in jail. And I guess he just died not long ago, in his 80s. But so what the court did this year is they took that case, called the Rodriguez case, and without involving any medical, scientific, expert, or patient witnesses, the court ruled the exact opposite as it did in Rodriguez. And so we now have, Canada has now become the most permissive country on the planet with respect to assisted suicide. And the new government just elected 2 weeks ago is talking about asking for feedback. I'm going to submit the paper that I'm publishing right now in the Canadian Criminology Journal of Research on this field, which was accepted for publication last year. It'll be in the November edition, and it's going to bring about the debate once again for assisted suicide to continue, but on a method that's much more logical and more common sense for people. And when I say that, what I mean is the law was supposed to be set up for those that have some form of physical or mental disability. But the justices, unfortunately, decided to ignore that issue and ordered that regardless of the person's status, physically or mentally, the state cannot impose a duty to live. So now anyone in Canada can have the right to commit suicide legally, regardless of their health condition or not.
Wait,
So
what do you mean regardless of their health condition? So just anyone who wants to die just goes and...
Can die legally now, that's correct.
Don't they need to have some kind of diagnosis?
Well, that was what they were supposed to rule, but it actually went way beyond that, unfortunately. And so there are people, in fact, there's one lady who actually has been diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's, but it won't affect her for at least 10 to 20 years. But the law doesn't require the symptoms to be actually affecting her. So she was able to take her own life last month under this new law, even though she has absolutely no symptoms whatsoever. In fact, the law is so permissive, you don't have to even have a diagnosis. You just have to choose to not want to have what's called a duty, which is what the court identified. So that's what my paper's on. It's going to be published in the next few days, and as I told you before, I was planning on sharing it with yourself, Sonora, and anyone who's interested in reading it. Now I have it now written, or you can wait till it's in the journal, and then you can read the actual journal article. But it's the first time that our sorry.
I'm sorry, Brian, can you tell us a little bit about what you're going through? I think that's pretty interesting about your parents.
Oh well, it's true. I have to basically do. I don't know if I would call it palliative care, but it's getting close to that. My parents are very disabled, very sick, very terminal, and I've moved them into my home, and they've been here for several years. And before that, I looked after them in their home, and now they're in their final stages, and I have to do pretty much all of the caregiving myself. And it's not easy. I'm guessing. I'm learning. It's not something I'm trained for. So I've had to. It's a lot of on the job experience, but I don't have much choice. So I'm sure anyone who's ever taken care of a dying person can understand.
Yeah, it is.
I'm going to interrupt for 1 minute, guys. I got to go to bed. I got to work in the morning.
Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Have a good night.
Join again next time you have one.
Yeah, I will definitely work on a much better platform. I promise.
Y'all have a good night.
You too. Thank you.
You too.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
You have a good night.
Yeah, it's probably much earlier out where she is, or much later, I should say. Sorry. Where I am on the West Coast, it's still only 7:30.
How do you, Teresa? What time is it? Where you are?
About 25 to 10
PM.
p.m.
Right. Over here is what time is it here? Oh, okay. You're about an hour. We're about an hour ahead of you.
Okay, guys, I should go because tomorrow I work. I wake up at 6 a.m. every day in the morning, guys.
Okay.
It was
Amir, thank you for joining.
You're welcome. It was
Good night.
very useful, very, very useful. Thank you for joining. Thank you for talking.
Yeah.
I hope to see you guys happy always.
Thank you.
Okay. Good night.
Yeah, good night, Amir.
Bye.
So, Teresa, how do you at night? How does that work for you? Do you have a hard time? Yeah. Do you have a hard time going to sleep? Do you?
Yeah. In fact, I've been suffering greatly with muscle Charlie horses from my hips on down. Even the tops of my feet and then my shins and my thighs on both the top and the bottom. So I dread going to sleep. I'm afraid to go to sleep at night because I don't want to wake up with that. And because if I feel them coming on, I can get up, walk around, and prevent them from coming. But once they start, it's one after another, after another, after another. And I'm going to go to the doctor and see if he can give me something for muscle spasms. I do have muscle relaxers, but they don't do anything. And I tend to stay away from a lot of pills. So I'm not on any pain medicine. I meditate and do relaxation techniques.
Right.
But I do have a hard time going to bed, going to sleep. And last night I was just tossing and turning for 3-4 hours before I just got up and have a little bowl of cereal or something and try to go back to bed.
Yeah, I could imagine.
Yeah. But that's all, you know, I take a lot of vitamins. That's about the only thing I do take. The system is pretty worn down. And my hemoglobin, or I think it's my hemoglobin, yeah, it's been real low.
Are you just
So
anti-medicine altogether, or is it?
all I take is Prilosec for
Right,
my
for your
stomach
stomach.
and Aldaxon, which is to get a control on the fluids of ascites. I've been drained a couple of times where they took over 5 liters of fluids out of my stomach, and I don't want to have to do that again. It's very uncomfortable to have ascites. It feels like, I don't know, none of you have probably been pregnant before, but it feels like you're about 15 months pregnant and about ready to pop, or like a water balloon. So to get that relief, I take the Aldaxon, but I refused it at first because one of the side effects is gastric bleeding, in which I've had 3 separate episodes of my esophageal varices bleeding, which is right in the lower third of my esophagus.
Yeah.
So I was very reluctant to take the medication, but she gave me half of those.
And so, how
But
about your
that's
appetite? How's that?
not good.
Not very
I
good.
think, no, and I've suffered a little bit of malnutrition as a result. I try to get as much protein,
Right.
but nothing looks good. And it's the furthest thing from my mind to sit down and eat anything. But since I've gotten more control over my ascites, I've noticed my appetite has been a little better. But I still eat it. I'll only eat it maybe 2 or 3 bites at a time because of my esophagus is swollen and it's hard to eat as well. I have a condition where I have a hard time swallowing. So I take tiny little bites and chew them 30 times before I swallow them. And I usually only have the patience for about 3 bites.
I guess I just kind of want to know why you keep yourself from taking meds.
uh, I don't like, I don't, I broke my back this last June. Ibuprofen, 4 ibuprofen every 4 hours for pain. And that's what started my esophageal bleeding. So I really don't even take ibuprofen or Tylenol. It's real hard on your liver anyway.
Uh-huh.
But it's real hard on my esophagus as well. And they gave me morphine when I was in the hospital, and I don't like being out of it.
Dad, stop. Can you hear me?
I can't.
Yeah?
I was breathing into the microphone. It's just driving me nuts. Okay, thank you. Go on. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
So the esophageal, you were saying?
Yeah, that I have to. And
So because of
the state
that, Is that the reason why you don't take medications? I just,
A lot of it, yeah.
because
Yeah,
it'll,
and I got terribly nauseated.
there's
You know,
anti-nausea medicine too.
kind of opiates. But I'm not opposed to taking some when I'm at the point where
Yeah,
meditation or relaxation doesn't work anymore.
yeah,
And then I'll have to try something else, maybe Dilaudid or
yeah,
Tramadol.
yeah.
But I'm waiting till I can't take it anymore. But then they say, well, you shouldn't wait till it's so late. You
Right.
know, it's easier to maintain the pain if you start early on. But I only have periodic pain. It's not constant. It's off and on throughout the day. And I usually just kind of, cater to it. I'm not working right now. I'm on disability.
Right.
And so I have all this time to just cater to my gastrointestinal tract. And that's what I do. I can't really do anything else because, the minute I, go for a walk or something like that, I start getting pain in my stomach, my liver hurts, and a lot of the physical activity just with the fatigue and the nausea and the pain in my liver just prevents me from doing a lot of stuff. And that can be
I'm
frustrating.
on a hospice call about my neighbor. People all over
That
Canada.
sounds
This lady,
like,
the doctor, nurse. It's shocking. They all wonder what they're
we can hear you. So, that sounds like a lot of discomfort to deal with. Just,
Yeah, it's been like this for quite a few years. That's why I'm kind of looking forward to death.
I see.
You know, if anything's got to be better than what I've been living the last 10 years. It's kind of been a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, right. And I was unclear about the time that they told you a year, but it's been 3.
They gave me about a year and a half, 2 years ago.
It's not your time yet.
So,
Right.
yeah, I'm on board.
Shay was totally buried under your pillows in the bed.
She wanted to be there. I didn't put her
Hey, bananas anymore.
Yeah.
I do have a little sense of humor I got from my mom, which we used up until her death. It's kind of
there. Please.
admin in dealing with her death. It just would kind of lighten things up a little bit. But I know it's not a laughing matter, but I checked into that death with dignity.
Dying
Uh,
with dignity.
Dying with dignity. I know it's in the States, it's legal in Washington and Oregon,
Yep.
and they're in the process of legalizing it in Minnesota.
Yes.
However, you have to be terminally ill with a very short time.
Well, it looks like we need to move to Canada.
Yeah, right now, better. They're killing them right one after another right now if you come up quick.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
So
Leduc died within 2 weeks.
If I were to fly out to Canada, I could have this.
I don't know how it works with immigration yet. I mean, I know you can do that to other countries in the world, right? I'm not sure. I mean, so far we've just been killing our own. But I'm sure it's only a matter of time before, I mean, it's called suicide tourism, and
Yes,
it goes on, it's all over the world. It's very big. Canada is going to is set to take the leading edge in it, unfortunately. I mean, it's good for those that need it, I agree, but we've taken it way too far. You'll see in my paper how far. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, I support it. Nobody having to suffer. I mean, nobody should have a duty to live if they're suffering. But you know, if you're not even sick or suffering at all, it's one of those things where you can't legislate someone's life on them. You know, But yeah, you're right. Right now, until Trudeau gets his hooks in it, it's pretty open right now.
So what would a person do? They just go and then go to the hospice and say,
No, I think you don't even need that. I think you could just basically come up, go to a walk-in clinic, talk to a doctor, tell them that you're planning on killing yourself, and you know, it's a machine, right? They use the Kevorkian machine, right? So they just set you up to the machine, and you press go, and you're dead within 3 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, that's why Canada's going to be way ahead of Amsterdam and Netherlands, because they all do use, I don't know if you know those methods, but it's this long drawn out stages that they make you go through. Here in Canada, none of that's necessary. It's almost instantaneous.
I know in Washington and Oregon, they give you a prescription of a relaxant, probably Valium or something like that. And then within a half hour, 45 minutes, they'll give you the pill. And then when that kicks in, you say your goodbyes and you go to sleep.
So they do it with pills.
Yeah. See,
Gotcha.
If I had the option, that's what I would want. The go to sleep pill.
Yeah. I know in Canada it's a 3-step. The first one is an anti-anxiety pill or IV. Sorry. The second one is it knocks the person unconscious, and then the third one stops the heart. So it's a 3-step IV process they use.
Yeah. I've tossed that thought around pretty much the last year and a half or so. Just thinking about it, reading about it, talking to people, the Death with Dignity groups, and kind of back and forth with that. I don't know if I could get myself to do it. I feel like it's too much of a...
It's called pentobarbital.
Yeah.
That's it's a barbiturate.
Yeah.
It's a short-acting barbiturate. And,
yeah.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, everything's up in the air.
Euthanasia, it's happening in Oklahoma too, so it's not...
I cover a lot of this in my paper. I go all around the world, and I give the status of where it is everywhere in the world, every country, every state. It's all in my paper.
Yeah, I still have yet to read that.
Well, wait. If you want to give it a bit, I'll send you the article right from the journal, and then you can read the abstract too, because they put them together.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, I bet.
My first
Congratulations. Congratulations on your publishing.
Thank you. Yeah. I've done 5 co-authors before, but this is my first solo.
All right. Yeah.
What just happened? Okay.
Well, guys, Thank you so much for joining. It was very interesting. I'm disappointed that the rest of the people weren't here, but it wasn't meant to be. Teresa, I'd love to keep in touch with you, even one-on-one, and just talk.
Okay.
Um, just,
I'm here.
uh,
I don't do too much.
no, I know, I hear you. But yeah, maybe I'll inbox you, and we'll be in touch, please. Thank you
Yeah.
for joining.
Okay, bye-bye,
Well,
Teresa.
I want you to be encouraged, like this is your first meeting on the format. You could work out some of the kinks that you have found
Yeah.
and help people get on, and they'll probably work out better. You know, the first time for everything is always kind of rough.
Yeah, I'm pretty disappointed. I thought this would be good to go, but it seemed to be stuck. There were 32 people, and then I lost a lot of them. But it doesn't matter. What we had was good, and I'm happy. You know, it's just
Yeah.
there's that quote I posted. It was it's not how many people you help or anything like that or reach out to, but it's not quantity. Even one person matters a lot. It was really good to meet you.
Yeah,
To
good to meet
look
you.
at you. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, it's good to put a face to the name.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you,
And,
Brian.
Yes,
No
thank you,
problem.
Teresa
Thank
and
you.
Brian.
Let's
It was a
stay in
lot of fun.
touch.
Okay,
Okay.
sounds good.
Yeah.
You take care.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye-bye
Good
now.
night,
Bye-bye.
you guys. You guys. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.